of the Nigerian Extended Continental Shelf project. Who is sponsoring the motion with me are 32 distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I seek your permission to move. The Senate notes that on 7th May 2009, Nigeria made a formal submission to the United Nations Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, stating its intention for an extension of the continental shelf beyond the 200 nautical miles from the baseline from which the breadth of the territorial sea is measured. Notes further that the submission is equal to the provision of Article 76 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, which allows coastal states to make additional claim of between 200 nautical miles to a maximum of 350 nautical miles, an equivalent of 650 miles, beyond their exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles. If the coastal state is able to prove through scientific data and information that the seabed and the subsoil of the marine area of its territorial sea is a natural prolongation of its land territory to the outer edge of the continental shelf. Aware that every coastal state has a seaward delimitation of its territorial waters, and for the purpose of insight, it is as follows. Territorial waters. This is the breadth of a coastal state territorial sea, not exceeding 12 nautical miles, measured from the baseline of the coastal state as provided by the Convention. The contiguous zone. This is adjacent to the territorial waters and does not extend beyond 24 nautical miles from the baseline from which the breadth of the territorial sea is measured. The exclusive economic zone. This is beyond and adjacent to the territorial sea and shall not extend beyond 200 nautical miles, measured from the baseline from which the territorial sea is measured, and is only claimable if the coastal state's seaward boundary is not encumbered by another coastal state. Finally, the extended continental shelf, which is the one we are looking for. This is a prolongation of the seabed and the subsoil of the marine area beyond the exclusive economic zone of a coastal state, and is only claimable if the state is able to prove through scientific information backed by data and argument that the seabed and the subsoil of the marine area of its territorial sea extends beyond the 200 nautical miles exclusive economic zone. The United Nations Convention allows such additional claim to a maximum of 350 nautical miles. Note also that Nigeria claim for an extension of our continental shelf from 200 to 350 nautical miles is achievable, and thus set up an interministerial technical committee in the year 2000, which has been coordinated by the National Boundary Commission and has been the forefront of the project. Aware that on the submission of a claim, Nigeria set up an office in the United Nations office with some Nigerian experts trained for that purpose and foreign consultants engaged for overseeing the day-to-day activities of the project. Understand that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, set up a high-powered presidential committee on 5th November 2015, being chaired by the Attorney General of the Federation for the purpose of a proper follow-up to the successful claim of the submission. This is as recommended by the Senate in 2013. The Senate had, in its order paper of 14 February 2013, urged the federal government to urgently fund the project, as the officers in the United Nations had not received their allowances for about 2 years at that time, so the project went dormant. Thus, the project suffered hiccups of funding from government, first for about 18 months, then for about 3 years, till November 2015, when President Muhammadu Buhari constituted the above committee and defrayed the outstanding financial commitments. Observe that Nigeria has already invested a lot of taxpayers' money in the project for the collection of geological, geophysical, and hydrological data but has not yet completed the process from its commencement in 2000 after the adoption of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea in 1997, and it will be economically unwise for the federal government to put drag on the project at this time, and this will also portray Nigeria in a bad light at the United Nations. Notes further that Nigeria laid a claim of 8,000 kilometers square, approximately toward the size of Lagos, in our first submission made in 2009, which could be improved upon if Nigeria's submission was based on morphology supported by geology, as against the evidence of the contrary used in gathering our technical data that was submitted in 2019. Notes that the extended continental shelf, when achieved, will be an additional seaward territory beyond the exclusive economic zone of 2,000 nautical miles, over which the country already has sovereign rights. Notes further that Article 77 of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea has given an exclusive right with regard to exploration and exploitation of such resources to the coastal state of the country, to the coastal state that has been able to claim the territory as prescribed by the Convention as given below. Article 77. The coastal states exercises over the continental shelf foreign sovereign right for the purpose of exploring it and exploiting its natural resources. The right referred to in paragraph 1 are exclusive in the sense that if the coastal state does not explore the continental shelf or exploit its natural resources, no one may undertake these activities without the express consent of that coastal state. The right of the coastal state over the continental shelf do not depend on occupation, effective or national, or on any express proclamation. And finally, the natural resources referred to in this part consist of the mineral and other non-living resources of the seabed and subsoil, together with the living organisms belonging to the sedimentary species, that is to say, organisms which at the harvestable stage either are immobile on or under the seabed or are unable to move except in constant physical contact with the seabed or the subsoil. Similarly, Article 81 also gives an exclusive drilling right to the coastal state that have been able to claim its extended continental shelf. See as below. It says the coastal state shall have the exclusive right to authorize and regulate drilling on the continental shelf for all purposes. It recalls that in 2013, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria expressed its displeasure on the failure of the federal government to defray a financial commitment, which has delayed the review and approval process after a lot of taxpayer money has been invested into it. Knows that the extended continental shelf is particularly important to any coastal state that is able to go through the regular process of approvals. The importance, among other things, include naval activities and national security, both on the sea, the seabed, and the airspace, as well as valuable resources of sanitary fisheries, bio-prospecting of deep ocean diversity, diverse types of minerals, including diamonds, phosphorite, sulfur, coal, iron, and hydrocarbons. These are in addition to abundant energy resources of oil and gas, which have been estimated to account for about 30% of expected seaport minerals. Understand that Nigeria will gain more as offshore oil well produce about 30% of the 85 million barrels of oil output per day in 2010. This means that with enough oil and gas prospecting infrastructure on offshore exploration and exploitation, the country will harvest more oil and gas than what is currently being produced onshore. Believes that offshore oil and gas production, when fully established, will drastically reduce militancy, incursion on oil pipelines, kidnapping of oil pipeline gas workers, as well as eradicate illegal bunkering, thus further reduce environmental pollution as it is today. Informed that between August and September 2015, the United Nations Commission Subcommittee, Commission on the Limit of the Sea, met about 12 times in New York for the review of Nigerian submission and made certain recommendations that need to be rigorously followed up to conclusion. Understand that after the release of the funds in 2016, Nigeria made an amendment submission to the United Nations based on the general rule of morphology, backed by geology and geophysics, and that the amended submission contained increased outer limit, making a claim for far much bigger area, about 19 kilometers square, or 5 times the size of Lagos State, than the submission in 2009. Believe that the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which has helped push the project forward all along, need to, as a matter of urgency, ascertain the status of the submission of the extended Continental Shelf project and make further deliberate effort for its completion before it is turned back. Mr. President of the Senate, I go to the prayers. Accordingly resolves, commend the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for setting up the high-power presidential committee with the mandate to coordinate the activities of the extended Continental Shelf project. Urge the President not to relent in his effort to fully support the project to its conclusion by defraying the outstanding financial commitment to the Nigerian office in the United Nations, resident team set up for the project at the United Nations and the foreign consultants to enable them to concentrate effort to obtain a positive recommendation from the United Nations today, for the United Nations body. Invite the United Nations resident team to brief the Senate in 4 weeks on the status of the Nigerian claim of our extended Continental Shelf, and direct its committee on marine transport, which functions include marine resources development, inland waterways, and international marine agreements, when constituted, to diligently follow up activities of the Nigerian Senate Continental Shelf project and regularly brief the Senate. Mr. President, I invite my colleagues to join me and support this motion for the
motion ably moved by Senator Sekibo. Mr. President, this motion is a no-brainer. The benefits are well stated. The predicate for the motion, Section 76 of the UN Convention of Law of the Seas, is also very well stated. Mr. President, what we need to do here is very, very clear. As we've been told in the previous Senate, this matter was taken, and the Senate has already spoken. And when the Senate spoke at the time, the government was enjoined to live up to its financial obligations, so that the benefits as conferred by Section 86 of this convention will come to us. So all we'll be saying today, Mr. President, is that it is very, very clear that the only way you will derive benefit is for you to assume some burden, and that burden is financial. Mr. President, we also know today, even though we were told not too long ago that we're receiving so much now from the non-oil sector, but we know that the only area that we're certain to derive maximum revenue is from oil. And if we succeed, Mr. President, with this extension, if we're able to make the case for the extension of the Continental Shelf beyond the 200 nautical miles, the benefit to be derived from the additional area, if proven, is very, very immense. Therefore, Mr. President, like I said, it's a very, very straightforward motion that does not require too much debate. So I therefore rise to support the motion as moved and to join all of our colleagues to join in supporting this motion. Thank you so much. I
am so encouraged by the outcome of the motion that was passed in 2013. This gives me hope that the persuasive power of motions is still very, very relevant in our democracy. Let me also join the sponsor of this motion to commend the executive arm of government that took a decisive action in obedience to the motion that was passed in 2013. Mr. President, the motion of 2013 was actually sponsored by my humble self, and the Senate then, the 7th Senate, did a thorough job. A very robust debate was carried out on this motion, and to the glory of God, the prayers were obeyed in 2015 when this government came into power. And that is why I say I joined the sponsor to commend government. If we understand the economic significance of this motion, I am sure we'll have tried to suspend some other issues to pursue this beyond the stated exclusive economic zone. This extension has a number of advantages to Nigeria. Mr. President, besides the offshore oil exploration, which is a common advantage that we know we are going to explore, beneath this advantage there is an underlying security advantage, which is occasioned by the activities of our naval men on the sea and the seabeds. Of course, there's also going to be a corresponding activity of the Air Force from the air power they will provide in an age where security matters a lot. We need to look at both left, right, and center, from the sea, on the land, and all that. And I think it's a good thing that this motion is coming, because after the first release that was made by the government to the officials in New York, there appears to be nothing again done. And I know this motion will be like a wake-up call. So I want to call on my colleagues to join in ensuring that this motion is passed so that more activities will spring up in this particular coastal area and ensure that we achieve the needed extension in the Continental Shelf project. Thank you, Mr. President.
On the floor of the Senate, bringing up the matter of economic nationalism. Whatever is here is clear, straightforward, and to the point. And I want to join my colleagues that had spoken earlier to urge all our members to please support this for the interest of Nigeria. I so support.
The Bureau Manager, CON Delta South. Mr. President, this motion, just like those who spoke before me, is a motion that everybody must support, because this is a motion for progress. The economic, social, security advantages that are bound in this motion, you cannot even estimate them. Mr. President, it's a motion because we are talking about land. We are talking about because the population in this country is growing by the day. And this is a motion that we want to extend the territorial boundaries of this country beyond the way it is. And it is very clear. 76 is saying that we can go beyond 200 to 350 nautical miles. And then when you calculate it, as the body of the motion, it's very clear that we will gain about 8,000 square kilometers. That is 2 times the present size of Lagos State. Even Lagos State can be extended. All the coastal states will be extended. So, and the 77 of the same article, that is 77 of the Convention of the Law of the Sea, saying that from what once extended, all the economic advantages therein in the extended area will be benefited by the coastal states. And we are talking about Nigeria, not just coastal states.
Nigeria, yes.
Nigeria. So, Mr. President, I am happy from the body of the motion, it's very clear that certain steps have been taken already. The motion itself came up on the floor of the Senate in 2013. And just like what we are doing now, we were able to move the executive arm of government to do something. And from the exposition given on the body of the motion, the president had even committed some funds to the project. And all what we need to do is to tidy up whatever that is remaining so that we'll go back to the same UN and make a case for the extension of our territorial boundary beyond where we are now. I think that is what this motion is all about. Mr. President, I support this motion and all the prayers therein, and I sincerely want to plead with everybody that because this motion is important to all of us, the advantages are just too numerous to mention. Even the ones that I've mentioned here, they are beyond the ones you have mentioned here, Mr. Sponsor. I am a co-sponsor of this motion. Mr. President, I urge everybody to support this motion because it is a very good one. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity.
It will even extend our airspace because once you come into the economic zone of Nigeria, it means you have also entered the airspace of Nigeria. If you extend our continental shelf, it means you are also extending our airspace. And the National Airspace Management Agency will also monitor aircrafts coming into Nigerian airspace, and they will claim revenue from that. Apart from revenue from oil and gas, we'll also get revenue from aircraft coming into our airspace. The security implication is also important. Some of my colleagues mentioned that our Navy will be monitoring the extended continental shelf. It means boosting our security around that area. So the benefits are enormous. I urge all my colleagues to support this very important motion. And time is of essence. It's better for Nigeria to move now and complete this project before other countries come in and claim that very area we are trying to claim. Thank you very much.
Senator Kabirga.
Accrue to Nigeria were this to have been completed long before now. In petroleum products, in minerals, even as it concerns issues of strategy and stratagem for our Navy. Mr. President, a distinguished colleague has said to us that we better hurry through this before another African country lays claim to our territory. Let me announce to the Senate that I have it on good authority that a neighboring African country has already done so. A neighboring African country that started this process with us has since completed their own process, laid claim to some of our territory, and such territory has been ceded to them. Sometimes I worry, Mr. President, why complacency characterizes some of these processes, even when the objective can be so profound. If you were to ask a few people why this is so, they will give you a litany of excuses and reasons, ranging perhaps from the sublime to the extremely preposterous. But all that will not cure the fact that great inefficiency and ineffectiveness has characterized this project before now, in spite of its importance. Mr. President, this reminds me of what we suffered in the Bakassi case. When Cameroon started laying claim to Bakassi, some of us saw it as a big joke. How could you be talking of laying claims to territories that have been occupied by people who clearly have those places as their ancestral homes, with copious evidence? How would you be laying claim to territories, we asked, a basis for which is spurious 1884 agreements? How could you be laying claims to territories where the people have a right to self-determination? We didn't see how it will come to pass, but it came to pass. And today Cross River is suffering it. Our citizens were forced to move. They are now like broken china in the sun. All the palliatives promised us, they have come only marginally, and nothing has seen happen. We have lost our oil wells. Cross River that used to be and should be at the center of things in the Niger Delta, we are now not just in the periphery, but in the periphery of the periphery. Yet the Cross River estuary is home to pollutants as a consequence of oil exploration. Mr. President, I say this because we still have some time. We should please, as a Senate, speak to authorities concerned, because we have the men and materials in this country. We have the intellectuals and the technocrats. There is no reason for why we would have completed this project by now. Mr. President, this, as I said, is a beautiful motion, and I support it completely. Thank you.
For bringing up this motion, and I'd like to align with everything that has been said by my colleagues on this motion, especially what the last speaker has said about the Bakassi Peninsula and how we let the Bakassi Peninsula slip from us. So, President, from the inception of this project, a lot of money has been expended. We don't have the amount, but I can assure everyone here that it should run into some millions of dollars. And again, like the last speaker said, this project has a timeline, because if we don't move on with it, some other people will move on with it. And so it is important for us to continue to encourage the president, who has had the determination to start funding this project after it has been abandoned for a while, to ensure that we bring this project to a conclusion. Mr. President, for us that are coming from the Niger Delta, where oil exploration has caused a lot of damage to our ecology, most times we can't even have live fishes anymore from our rivers. We have to do a lot of deep sea fishing. And this Continental Shelf project will increase, help us in the acquisition of maritime territory that will aid natural resources like fishing, and other types of minerals that we may have to find in that shelf. But most of all for us, aquatic life is almost coming to an end because of so much damage that has happened in our areas. And of course, like one of the speakers has said, it is important that we look at deep offshore nature of the drilling of this project. If we find hydrocarbons there, we'll of course again reduce the amount of devastation we will have by oil pollution. Mr. President, one of the major reasons why we have to push this project to conclusion is the fact that at the point of this project, the data collected was kept confidential, and it can be sold for a lot of money. I think it's important for us to quickly get this project to a conclusion so that the data that has been collected could be sold to interested investors, and we can recoup some of the monies we have spent, and also maybe be able to make some money to invest in other areas. I'd like to support all the prayers of this motion, and again thank all my colleagues who have contributed to this motion, and ask that everyone should support this motion for it to pass. Thank you very much.
Senator Stella Odwa.
We ceded to other nations. How we were taken to the International Court of Justice at The Hague. And fortunately enough, at the Council of State meeting, our dear President today, President Muhammadu Buhari, was present. And they all spoke in unison. They also found some lapses that were created because of their various positions. At the time, they were properly utilizing the autocratic process in governing Nigeria. But now this is a democratic process. Sir, I want to say that this subject matter for this course today should not be resisted by any eminent Nigerians here. It is for the good of our people. For us to increase, I never knew there would be a window of opportunity for Nigeria to increase their territorial boundary on the seashore. Sir, the benefits outweigh whatever we have had today. If America could now want to go and reside in the moon, and we are not prepared to go to the moon, and the opportunity for us to go to expand our territorial boundaries, our territorial leverages, so we should take opportunity, we should take the advantage of what has been opened. So I want to really plead with this distinguished Senate today, sir, through you, Mr. President of the Senate, to urge as fast as possible that in passing this motion today, in acclamation by all of us that we should speedily speak to the executive to put a mechanism in motion to actualize so that there will not be any lapses, because the other worlds are now looking at us, that we are waking up from our slumber. Oh, Nigeria, when they expand their territorial boundary, they are going to get this and this and these advantages. Sir, I want to say that in passing, the Senate should set up a committee to liaise with the executive and ensure that there is an implementation of this decision. Like my other colleagues have spoken, there should be accelerated, implementation of this decision so that we can conclude it within a timeline. I so agree with all the former speakers on the desire need for us to extend our continental shelf within the limit that is so defined by the international law, because we are not in any way infracting on the law of the sea. I agree with my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
My distinguished and respected colleagues, Senator Albert Bakassi, Akwa Ibom Northeast. Mr. President, I rise to thank my brother, my leader, and my mentor, Senator John Sekibo, for bringing this to the attention of the Senate. I also thank my respective colleagues for adding their voices to this motion. Mr. President, I'm from Akwa Ibom, and I know that this motion will be of great, immense benefit to this country and my state in particular, because most of 85% of our oil production in Akwa Ibom is offshore. So in terms of economic value, I believe that Akwa Ibom, being the largest oil producer, can actually add better value to our national economy. So I rise to support this motion. Mr. President, also, we all understand the story behind the loss of Bakassi to Cameroon. I think this is one of the fundamental reasons where the ICC court ruled that Cross River State, having lost his Bakassi to Cameroon, had lost his seaward boundary to the maritime waters, and hence ceases to be a major oil producing state. I believe that what President Muhammadu Buhari is doing is rising to the occasion to defend the interests, the economic interests, and the social benefits to all Nigerians as our president. Mr. President, this motion is very, very straightforward, and I believe that the content of the motion is also very, very apt. I thank my colleagues for adding value and adding their voices to this motion, and I thank you, Mr. President, for giving the sense of direction that we need in this country for such a time as this. Thank you, Mr. President, and God bless us all.
Senator Geshambasi.
My name is Geshambasi. I represent Cross River South Senatorial District in this ninth assembly. Mr. President, as a co-sponsor of this motion, I rise to support our distinguished Senator George Thompson Sekibo. It's a very technical motion, but at the same time, it's a very straightforward motion. The idea that we are going to accrue immense financial benefits to this country at a time when the country requires all the money it can get is an attraction of this motion. But at the same time, there are political implications and there are also social implications of this motion. And the idea that a lot of issues, as some have mentioned already, the Bakassi issue and so on, that had been unresolved or had been resolved in a way that was unsatisfactory, can now be revisited, is an added attraction for the people of my senatorial district and my state. So I wholeheartedly support this motion, and I pray that everybody in this chamber will support it. I so submit, Mr.
Is there anybody? Commend the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for setting up the High Power Presidential Committee with, let me read it first. Commend the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for setting up the High Power Presidential Committee with the mandate to coordinate the activities of the Extended Continental Shelf project. Those in favor say aye. Amendment.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I would like to make an amendment where you said, commend the President of the Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. You put President Muhammadu Buhari for setting up the high-powered presidential committee with the mandate to coordinate the activities of the Continental Shelf project. That's the amendment.
Seconder, Senator James Manager.
Mr. President, my respected colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by Senator Kabiru Gaya of Kano South.
Those in favor of prayer 1 as amended, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Urge the President not to relent in his efforts to fully support the project to its conclusion by defraying the outstanding financial commitment to the Nigerian office, the United Nations residence team set up for the project at the United Nations, and the foreign consultants to enable them concentrate efforts to obtain a positive recommendation from the United Nations body, the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3. Invite the United Nations resident team to brief the Senate in 4 weeks on the status of Nigeria's claim of her extended continental shelf. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Amendment, Senator Kabiriga. Is Committee on Marine Transport, whose functions includes marine resources development, inland waterways, and international marine agreements when constituted to diligently follow up activities of the Nigerian Extended Continental Shelf project and regularly brief the Senate. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Okay, Senator Kabiriga, amendment. Prayer 4 as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, distinguished colleagues, thank you very much for the various interventions. This is a worthwhile venture for our country. And let me also join all of us in commending Mr. President CNC for actualizing this project really by funding it. But we are supposed to be in it together. So we should be prepared also to provide the funds for the project to continue. Budget 2020 will be coming, and when it does, I think it is going to be our responsibility to ensure that we make provisions, significant provisions, to ensure that this project is realized eventually for our country to benefit from the resources that are waiting to be tapped. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.